Before we proceed any further, I need you to grasp something fundamental. What I am about to reveal to you is not speculation. It is not a theory. And it is most definitely not science fiction. Just 3 days ago, NASA put forth an internal directive unlike anything issued in its entire 70-year history of space exploration. They have suspended all deep space missions, every single one. And the reason behind this suspension should terrify you. But before we begin, I have a request. Go to the comments below, state your city, and tell me, have you witnessed anything out of the ordinary in the night sky recently? Anything at all? NASA is tracking these phenomena more closely than you suspect, and your observations might be far more critical than you realize. My name is Michio Aku, and what I am about to share may fundamentally alter how you view humanity's place in the cosmos. Allow me to transport you back to September of 2019. That was the moment the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS, first picked up an object piercing our solar system. We designated it 3I Atlas. The I denotes interstellar, marking it as the third interstellar object we have ever observed. Following Oumuamua and Borisov, we believed we were becoming accustomed to these cosmic visitors. We thought we had discerned a pattern, perhaps a rogue comet or an asteroid ejected from a distant star system billions of years ago, drifting through the frozen void until it happened to cross our little corner of the galaxy. We were wrong. I have dedicated my entire career to studying the fundamental forces that rule our universe. I have written on the fabric of space-time, on parallel universes, and on the theoretical probability of civilizations millions of years superior to our own. Yet, I always engaged with these subjects from the comfortable distance of mathematics and theory. I never expected to see the day when theory would collapse into reality with such brutal, undeniable force. The first anomaly appeared 3 weeks after 3I Atlas breached the heliosphere. The object was traveling at roughly 26 kilometers per second relative to the Sun. Unusual, certainly, but not unprecedented for an interstellar traveler. Its trajectory was hyperbolic, suggesting it would swing around our Sun and then shoot back out into the depths of space, never to return. It was nothing we hadn't seen before. But then it changed course. Not in a dramatic fashion that would generate headlines, but a subtle deviation. A slight adjustment in trajectory that could arguably have been dismissed as outgassing. The release of frozen volatiles heating up as the object neared the Sun. Every astronomer observing this object wanted to accept that explanation. I wanted to believe it. The problem was that the math didn't align. The deviation was too precise, too controlled. It lacked the chaotic, irregular thrust one expects from outgassing. It was a burn, a deliberate course correction, and that implied only one thing: propulsion. I recall the meeting at JPL where we first debated this. The room was populated by some of the most brilliant minds in planetary science. I watched the color drain from their faces as we ran the calculations. Someone attempted a joke about aliens to cut the tension. Nobody laughed. We all understood what we were looking at, even if we were hesitant to voice it. For 6 months, we tracked 3I Atlas as it navigated the inner solar system. NASA mobilized every observatory, every telescope, and every piece of detection hardware available. The James Webb Space Telescope, Hubble, the Very Large Array in New Mexico, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile, all focused on this singular object. We needed to comprehend what it was, its origin, and most critically, its intent. The spectroscopic data arrived first. The object's composition was unlike anything previously encountered. It wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. Based on our current grasp of material science, the surface appeared to be a crystalline metallic structure, boasting a melting point exceeding 15,000 degrees C. No known natural process could forge such a material. This wasn't a rock. This wasn't a comet. This was manufactured. I stood in my office that night, gazing up at the stars through my window, and I felt an emotion I hadn't experienced since childhood. Fear. Pure existential fear. Because in that moment I realized that humanity, for all our pride and achievement, was no longer the author of our own story. We had become characters in a narrative written by someone else. And we didn't even know the role we were cast to play. Then came the signal. It wasn't a radio transmission. It wasn't electromagnetic in nature at all. It was something far more sophisticated, something for which we barely possess the theoretical framework. Our gravitational wave detectors at LIGO were the first to catch it. A rhythmic distortion in space-time itself, emanating from 3I Atlas. The pattern was elegant, mathematical, and unmistakably artificial. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, the fundamental constants of physics articulated in a universal mathematical language. They were speaking to us. I was summoned to a classified briefing at NASA headquarters, joining a small cadre of linguists, physicists, and intelligence officials. The atmosphere in that room was unlike anything I have ever known. There was no excitement, no sense of historic breakthrough, only a heavy, suffocating dread. Because embedded within that mathematical message was something else: data. Vast quantities of data that our computers are still struggling to decode, but we retrieved enough. We understood enough. The message wasn't a greeting, it was a warning. Let me attempt to explain what they conveyed, though I am unsure if human language possesses the adequate words. According to the data stream, our galaxy, the Milky Way, is partitioned into zones, regions of space designated by a galactic authority we never knew existed. These zones are not defined by political territories or physical boundaries. They are based on evolutionary development, on consciousness, on what they termed cognitive emergence. Earth, along with several dozen other star systems in our local vicinity, exists within what they call a preservation zone. Think of it as a cosmic nature reserve. We are being observed, studied, protected, and, most critically, isolated. The reason is simple and horrifying. We are not ready. Not ready for what, you might ask? Not ready for contact with the broader galactic civilization. Not ready for the technologies that would become accessible to us. Not ready for the existential and philosophical implications of realizing our true standing in the cosmic hierarchy. According to the message, species that are contacted too early, before they have achieved what the message called cognitive unity, tend to self-destruct. Not eventually, but quickly, often within a single generation. The introduction of advanced technology and a cosmic perspective to a species still trapped in tribal thinking, still fractured by borders, ideologies, and primitive resource competition, is apparently fatal. Every single time. I think about this constantly. The Fermi paradox. The question of why, in a universe so old and vast, we have never detected signs of intelligent life, suddenly has a terrifying answer. We are in quarantine, a galactic quarantine, and 3I Atlas is a monitoring station, checking in on the inhabitants of this isolated zone to ensure we are still safely contained. But here is what keeps me awake at night. Something has shifted. 3I Atlas didn't just transit through our solar system, deliver its message, and depart. It stopped. 3 weeks ago, at a position approximately 1.2 astronomical units beyond the orbit of Jupiter, 3I Atlas came to a complete halt relative to the Sun. It is just sitting there, waiting, watching. And that is when NASA made the decision. All deep space missions suspended. The Artemis program to return to the Moon, postponed indefinitely. The planned missions to Mars, canceled. The probes we were preparing for Europa and Enceladus to search for life in subsurface oceans, shut down. Because we received a second message, and this one was even more explicit. We have effectively been served a cosmic restraining order. We are not to leave our immediate orbital space. We are not to establish any permanent presence beyond Earth. We are not to broadcast any further signals into deep space. The message stated that any violation of these terms would result in corrective intervention. They didn't specify what that meant. They didn't have to. I have spent the last few weeks consulting with government officials, military leaders, and fellow scientists, trying to make sense of our options. And the reality we return to is this: we don't have any options. Technologically speaking, we are insects. Compared to whoever sent 3i Atlas, if they decided tomorrow that humanity had become too unstable, too dangerous, or too much of a threat to spread beyond this planet, they could sterilize Earth without ever setting foot here. A relativistic projectile traveling at 90% the speed of light would strike our planet with the force of 1 billion nuclear weapons. We would never see it coming. Our entire civilization would be reduced to a thin layer of ash in the geological record, and the galaxy would continue on, never noticing we were gone. This is the reality we inhabit now. We are not the pioneers we imagined ourselves to be. We are not brave explorers reaching out into the cosmic ocean. We are specimens in a terrarium, carefully managed by forces we cannot comprehend and cannot resist. But there is something else in the data. Something that might be a thread of hope, or perhaps the cruelest irony of all. The message indicated that the quarantine is not permanent. Species can graduate from preservation zones, but only if they achieve cognitive unity. Only if they transcend their tribal origins and become, in some fundamental way, a single consciousness. Not a hive mind. The message was clear on that. Individuality is apparently essential to higher-order cognition, but a species where every individual views themselves as part of a larger whole, where cooperation overwhelms competition, where the survival of the many becomes indistinguishable from the survival of the one. How long do we have? The message didn't say, but it did provide examples of other species who succeeded. The average time from technological emergence, the point where a species develops radio technology and nuclear weapons, to cognitive unity is approximately 300 years. Some species do it faster. Many never do it at all. We are currently about 130 years into our window. I look at the state of our world today, the conflicts, the divisions, the inability to cooperate even in the face of existential threats like pandemic disease and climate change, and I wonder if we are going to make it. I wonder if the beings who sent 3i Atlas are watching us right now, running their calculations, updating their probability models regarding whether humanity will be one of the species that evolves or one of the species that destroys itself before it ever gets the chance. There is a term in evolutionary biology, the great filter. It is the idea that there must be some barrier, some incredibly difficult step in the evolution of intelligent life that prevents civilizations from becoming galaxy-spanning empires. Some argue the great filter is behind us, that the emergence of life or consciousness is so improbably difficult that we are lucky to be here at all. Others argue the great filter is ahead of us, a test that most civilizations fail. Now we know which one it is. The great filter isn't technological, it is psychological. It is the transition from viewing ourselves as separate, tribes competing for limited resources, to seeing ourselves as one species with a common destiny. It is learning to think in time scales longer than quarterly earnings reports and election cycles. It is developing the wisdom to match our power, and right now, we are failing that test. I received a call last night from a colleague at SETI. She was in tears. She told me she had spent her entire life searching for evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, dreaming of the day when we would finally make contact, when we would finally know we weren't alone. And now that it has happened, Now that we have received unambiguous proof that we are part of a galactic community, we have discovered that we are not invited to join. We are the neighbors nobody wants to talk to. The problem children who must stay in their room until they learn to behave. The profound irony is that we have been shouting into the void for decades, beaming our radio signals into space, desperately hoping someone would hear us and respond. And they did hear us. They were listening the whole time. They just chose not to respond, because they were waiting to see if we would grow up first. We didn't. NASA's suspension of deep space missions is being explained to the public as a budgetary issue, a simple reallocation of resources. That is the official story, and it is the story most people will believe because the truth is too strange, too disturbing, and too fundamentally destructive to our self-image as a species. How do you tell 8 billion people that we are not ready for the stars, that we are being held back by our own psychological development, that the universe has looked at humanity and decided we need more time in isolation before we are allowed to play with the other civilizations? But some of you know something is wrong. Some of you have been watching the sky and noticing things that don't quite make sense. Lights that move in ways that defy conventional physics. Patterns in the stars that seem almost deliberate. That is why I asked you to comment your location at the beginning of this video, because the monitoring has increased. 3i Atlas isn't alone anymore. Over the past 2 weeks, our long-range detection systems have identified at least 17 more objects entering the solar system on trajectories consistent with intelligent control. They are positioning themselves in a loose sphere around our sun, approximately 2 astronomical units out. A perimeter. A boundary. They are making sure we stay put. I think about the astronauts currently on the International Space Station, looking down at Earth, and I wonder what they are feeling. They are the humans farthest from home, our most distant representatives, yet they are barely 400 kilometers above the surface. In cosmic terms, they haven't gone anywhere at all. We are all trapped here together on this one small world, with all our potential and all our problems, trying to figure out how to become something worthy of the stars. The question that haunts me isn't whether we will ever get to explore the galaxy. It is whether we deserve to. Because maybe they are right. Maybe a species that cannot even achieve peace and cooperation on one planet, with one atmosphere and one set of interconnected ecosystems, has no business spreading to other worlds. Maybe we would be a plague on the galaxy, exporting our violence and short-sightedness to every world we touched. Or maybe we are capable of more. Maybe this enforced isolation is exactly what we need. A pressure cooker that will force us to confront our own nature and choose, deliberately and consciously, to evolve beyond it. Maybe the next 170 years will be the most important in human history. The period where we either achieve the cognitive unity that will unlock the galaxy for us, or destroy ourselves in nuclear fire and climate catastrophe, becoming just another failed experiment in the cosmic laboratory. I don't know which path we will take. Nobody does. That is the terrifying beauty of free will. The outcome isn't predetermined. We get to choose what kind of species we become. But I do know this. They are watching right now. At this very moment. Advanced intelligences with perspective and technology we can barely imagine are monitoring our every move, our every decision, waiting to see if we will pass the test or fail it like so many species before us. 3i Atlas forced NASA to suspend all deep space missions because we have been told, in no uncertain terms, that our expansion into space is over until we prove we are ready for it. We are grounded. And we will stay grounded until we learn to see ourselves not as Americans, or Chinese, or Africans, or Europeans, but as humans. Not as different ideologies or religions competing for dominance, but as one species with one future, standing together at the threshold of either extinction or transcendence. The universe is waiting to see what we choose. I have been thinking about my grandchildren a lot lately. They are young, still in school, still dreaming about the future, with that unburdened optimism children possess before the world teaches them cynicism. What kind of world will they inherit? Will they grow up on a planet finally beginning to heal? Finally learning to cooperate? Finally taking those first tentative steps into a galactic community that welcomes us? Or will they inherit the ashes of a civilization that had everything it needed to succeed, but squandered it on willful ignorance and ancient hatreds? I don't have the answer. None of us do. But I know the answer will be determined by the choices we make in the next few years, the next few decades. Every decision matters now. Every step toward unity or division, toward cooperation or competition, toward wisdom or short-sightedness, is being weighed on a cosmic scale we are only beginning to understand. And they are watching us. They have always been watching us. And they will continue watching until we prove we are ready to join them, or prove we never will be. So, I will ask you again, have you noticed anything unusual in the sky? Because this isn't just about scientific curiosity anymore. This is about understanding that we are part of something vastly larger than ourselves, something that has been unfolding for billions of years across trillions of stars, and we are at a critical junction point in that cosmic story. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings, because this isn't over. This is just the beginning of a transformation that will either elevate us to the stars or confine us to this one small world until we fade into geological history, and the universe moves on without us. The question I can't stop asking myself, the question that keeps me awake every night staring at the ceiling, is this. When the cosmic historians write the story of humanity thousands of years from now, will they write about us as the species that grew up, that learned wisdom, that earned their place among the stars? Or will we be a cautionary tale, a warning to other young civilizations about what happens when a species gains godlike technology without gaining godlike wisdom? What do you think? Are we capable of becoming what they need us to be? Drop your thoughts below, because I genuinely want to know. Do you believe humanity can pass this test?